Hello and welcome to the Fuel, Run, Recover podcast, where we are now in our third season of helping everyday runners fuel better, run smarter, and recover faster so you can reach your full performance potential. I'm your host, Stephanie Natchuk, dietitian, running coach, twin mom, and fellow runner too. As the owner of Stephanie Natchuk Performance Nutrition, I've spent over a decade helping runners learn to fuel their bodies better, unlock their best running performances, and establish healthier relationships with food and exercise. This podcast is all about helping you become the very best runner you can be by teaching you the running-specific nutrition, training, and recovery strategies that you need to reach all your wildest health, fitness, and running goals. If you're ready to reconnect with your love of running, join me each week as I share my best advice, interview guest experts, and talk to everyday runners who are conquering their goals by tapping into the power of performance nutrition, with a side of some myth busting too. And if you're looking for even more tips, resources, and strategies for runners, you can find me on Instagram at Steph the Runner's Dietitian or by visiting www.stephanienatchuk.com. All right, let's dive into today's episode. Start today's episode, I just want to really quickly invite you to download my free fueling guide and strength training guides for runners. Currently available as a handy little bundle for you all in one at the link in the show notes. So just to give you more information, in this free fueling guide, you're going to find my top fueling tips for runners. As well, in there, I've put together some meal ideas and even a couple of recipes for your pre and post run fuel. We've also got some suggestions for what to fuel with during your run to make sure that you just have the best overall performance possible. If you've really been struggling to understand what to eat, when, where to start when it comes to supporting your running with better nutrition, this guide is here to help you kickstart your running journey. The other guide that I mentioned is my strength training guide for runners. We know that runners are notoriously bad at consistently getting their strength training in. So this guide includes both a PDF resource, it's got some tips, some guidelines, as well as a link to my series on YouTube where I walk you through all the exercises in this program, giving you some suggestions on proper form, how to modify if needed, how to progress things if needed. This is a really great beginner's guide to strength training for runners who want an effective but efficient full body workout that is going to support the key muscles and movements you need to run stronger and help stay injury free. So once again, both of these guides are available as a handy little bundle. So you just click on the link in the show notes, enter your email address once, and both of the free guides are going to get sent to your inbox right away. I really hope that you find these guides helpful and that they support you and your running goals in the most effective way possible. So without further ado, let's get into today's episode. All right. Hello and welcome everyone to this week's episode of the Fuel, Run, Recover podcast, where I am really, really excited to bring you this week's special guest. We have with us Stephen Price, who is the owner of a company called Dream Travel Canada. And if you are not familiar with what that is, Stephen's going to tell you all about it in a minute, but he has agreed to come and sit down and talk to us not only about, his travel company and what they specialize in and all of the great ways that they can support you and your running dreams, but also just talking about some of the different ways that we can get ourselves into some of these big goal races like World Majors and runDisney events and the like, that might be very challenging, very popular, races that often sell out instantly or have lotteries. So today we're going to be talking about the ins and outs of navigating some of those really big events and, how an organization like Dream Travel Canada can make it a lot easier. So thank you so much, Stephen, for agreeing to take the time to come and chat with me today. Wonderful. So to kind of kick things off, I certainly am very interested, and I'm sure the listeners are too, to learn a little bit more about yourself, kind of your background. If people are watching the video version of this podcast, you'll see that Stephen is sitting with a whole rack of medals behind him. So obviously, you're a runner yourself as well. So just telling us a little bit about yourself, kind of your origin story, getting into this area of travel and how you came to start Dream Travel Canada.
Yeah, sure. Well, that goes back a few years, about 22 or so. I was working a quote unquote regular job. I was in retail upper management based out of Edmonton, and working literally 90 hours a week on an average week, and stressed out, hence the receding hairline. And I decided, I'm being paid extremely well, especially for that time. But life is not. I'm not happy. There's something definitely missing. And I'd gotten into running just previous to that, maybe a year or so previous, because I was quite overweight. I was about 75 pounds overweight, and I picked up running because I had seen the running room groups always going out, and I was always afraid to join them because I'm overweight and I'm not a runner, and you need to be a runner to join a running group, which is silly because it's for all levels. And so I started running my own, lost a bunch of weight, ran a bunch of 4 marathons, and decided this is great. I love running, and the love-hate thing kind of thing. I loved it more than I hated it because I lost all this weight in a fast period of time. And I quit my job with no plan, and I just went traveling. And so I was traveling all throughout Europe and running. Everywhere I went, I ran. I just had my running shoes, a small bag, and I'm like, this is freedom on a level I've never experienced before. And also it brought me immense joy. I'd run Edmonton, every single possible trail, and there's a lot of trails in Edmonton. It was amazing, but you go to Turkey or Egypt or anywhere in Europe, and you're like, just drop your stuff off the hotel and go for a run. It's amazing. So it was on one of those trips where I'm like, I wonder if other people would actually like to do something like this, or if I'm just crazy. And so I pitched my idea to the running room because at the time I was teaching running clinics for them. And I was also working part-time when I came back. And I said, this is what I want to do. And they said, well, we've kind of tried this in the past. Didn't work out so well, but because we trust you and you're here with us, we'll let you give it a try. And Dream Travel was born, thanks to them being gracious enough to trust me. And yeah, it was a success off the start, and it's been 21 years of business and lots of trips.
Amazing. Yeah, I bet. And so, combining running and travel is something that I think probably has only grown in popularity over the course of those 21 years. I don't know if I'm right or wrong about that. But of course, it makes sense for you kind of finding your inspiration and your interest in it there. Going from kind of like your idea of, oh, hey, if I'm enjoying this, maybe other people will enjoy it too, which obviously you were completely right about. How then does that idea kind of get so integrated with some of these major events? So how do you go from just maybe offering this as like, oh, hey, come in and run this race with us, sort of, I guess, like unofficially, or, the logistics and everything, like we'll take care of that sort of idea, to becoming an official tour operator for some of these organizations, like a lot of the world majors or runDisney? Like, how do you kind of get onto that level of being a really great way for people to even get into some of these events that they might not be able to otherwise?
Sure, yeah. Well, that's changed over the years. So when I got involved, it was much, much easier. You didn't need to have any experience. You just had to have the money to pre-purchase, guaranteed entries. They, typically accepted you if the market wasn't saturated already in your country, wherever you're from. And so I was very fortunate because I got in a long time ago. Nowadays, it's completely different. You need to have, X number of years running an actual travel agency, licensed the whole time. And it's kind of like a chicken and egg thing. You need to have experience for them to give you a chance, right? And you can't get the experience without having a chance. So you got to start with much smaller events and work your way up. And to be honest, nowadays, I think it's next to impossible. Even myself, with 21 years of doing this, and with some of the majors, 21 years of contracts every single year, I still struggle getting certain contracts because the market's oversaturated. There's a limit to the entries, and as you had mentioned earlier, races sell out like that. So they don't need us, yet they definitely want us.
Okay.
Because when it comes to a guaranteed entry versus booking straight through the marathon, they get to charge substantially more through us. This is how they make their money. But they got to find a balance between, lottery winners and charities, and then guaranteed entries from companies like mine, and whatever other programs they have in place. So, so it's not the same as it was. Way more difficult now. And I'm very grateful that I got in when I did, because, I deal with people on a weekly basis that have a very reputable company, been in business for a lot of years, can't get a single contract from anybody else, like at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And, interestingly, like your company primarily is for Canadian travelers who are going to do these events, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah.
So with, by contract with most of the Abbots, we can only sell to Canadians. There's a few exceptions to that. But non-Abbots, different story.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. So there's this whole kind of world of, well, I guess we'll call it politics, even though it's not really, but that kind of, policies and
for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, just such a fascinating and interesting area of running and racing and all of the logistical stuff that we maybe don't consider, like, especially as, for myself, like I am going to be running my very first world major this fall. I'm signed up to run New York with Dream Travel Canada, which is, how I heard about you guys. And I thought this would make a great, such a great episode topic to cover. But of course, prior to that, I've mostly run what I'll call local races. I mean, ones that are here, of course, in Winnipeg, where I'm based out of, ones that are fairly close to home. Like a lot of Winnipeggers will travel down to Fargo, North Dakota for their marathon in the springtime, because it's just a couple of hours away. Again, fairly easy to get into. It's not one of the ones that you're going to struggle to find a spot, even maybe somewhat last minute. So it's a really popular, really, really good race for Canadians to go travel to. And so if you don't have experience with like branching out to some of these bigger events, I think that a lot of runners can find themselves surprised, overwhelmed, disappointed by the complexity and the challenges and the months, if not years, that you need to be planning ahead in order to be able to complete some of these events. Like it's really become an interesting thing. The lottery for New York just took place a couple of days before we're recording this episode. And I mean, once again, this has been happening every single time we have a world major lottery going on. It's just been record-breaking numbers of people trying to enter. And it's tough out there. It's really challenging if you have a dream of running a specific event, that if you're trying to get in just via the lottery, it might be a very, very long time before you get your chance.
Yeah, for sure. Again, when I started this, you didn't need to book it a year in advance. You could almost have booked it 2 or 3 months prior, and not an issue. Leading up to the pandemic, where before it would take us, say, 4, 5, 6 months to sell out, we're getting to the place where it's like 2 months or a month to sell out. And I thought, wow, that's amazing, because, we have a lot of entries for some of these events. And to sell that many entries that quickly, I thought was amazing. Since the pandemic, though, hours. It's like we become the runDisney kind of thing for Abbots, because, we sold out Berlin in 4 hours. We sold out London in, I think, 4.5 hours. New York, we have way more entries for. I don't know exactly, but I want to say like 3 days or something, maybe.
Yeah.
Just gone. They go so quickly. So you need to plan in advance. If you're waiting for the lottery results, which you're, I hate to say it, but you're not going to win. If you wait for lottery results, you're not going to get into the race. So this is why and for years we've had this program where it's like, sign up with us and go in the lottery. If you win, I'll cancel your package or I'll give you a hotel only. So either way, you're
Yeah.
guaranteed to run and
Yeah.
at the cheaper price, right? I'm not going to say, well, now you're stuck with two entries.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that. But nowadays it's like you need to be on our wait list prior to the current
Yeah.
year's marathon. So you get an email from me saying, okay, we're going to release entries
Yeah.
tomorrow at noon. Be quick on the keyboard, and we have other systems in place too for those on our wait list. But yeah, it's gone from months down to
Yeah.
mere hours. If you're on
Yeah.
wait list.
Yeah. That's wild. And it's funny because just kind of sharing my personal experience with all of this, it was obviously really positive because we got our spots and it was great. But my friend who I'm running this race with this year, she had heard about this option and your company quite a few months ago. So we've been talking about wanting to do New York this coming year, 2025, for months. Like, I've got very young kids at home and had mentioned it to my husband, and he was like, yeah, no problem. Like, all good. You want to sign up for sure. So it was by no means an impulse decision that we had signed up for this event. But on the day when the spots opened up, by the time she went on, she was like, oh my gosh, there's only like 9 spots left. We're like, we need to decide if we're doing this right now. So it felt like it definitely felt like a little bit of an impulse thing that we jumped in, even though we have been talking about it for months and months. But no, it was great to kind of know that far in advance that we were going to be getting in and guaranteed our entry, and even to have our hotel book and everything like that too. So so just so people have some kind of clarity and kind of a good understanding of what this option sort of entails for them when it comes to signing up for events. And just, so we're clear, this is not only for world major events, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about, all the different events that you are an official tour operator for? Because it's not just world majors and runDisney, but then also like what signing up with your company or traveling with your company actually includes, because it's not just that you get into the race, but there's lots of other great stuff that comes along with it.
Yeah. So really we'll call it 3 different types of races. The Abbott, like we've mentioned, I'll say the non-Abbott regular events. So the Paris marathons, for instance, and then there's the VIP escorted trips, right? So we are on location for almost every single trip. Like 99.9% of them, the odd one we don't go to because of scheduling conflict or whatever, because there's so many marathons nowadays that, we can't be, even though there's a group of us, there can't be at all at the same time. And then there's, like I said, the escorted ones where we're there the whole time and it's like a longer trip. Like, for instance, we just came back from Mount Kilimanjaro where we did a 2-week trip with various components, right? So that'd be the third type. All 3 come with different types of things. The Abbotts, though, typically come with, they all come with a hotel and a guaranteed entry. That's very important to know. It's not, we'll get you in if this happens. It's a guaranteed entry. We have a contract with the event. We have prepaid those entries. And then not only having us on site, we're always on site for Abbott. We also include like a shakeout run. We include a meet and greet. We have an after party and spectator functions, everything we can do to make it not just race weekend, but an event, right? I mean, this is going to be your first Abbott World Marathon major. You're choosing, I don't know if I can say, but in my personal opinion, the best. I run it 9 times myself. I said never run a marathon more than once, because why?
Yeah.
There's so many. And I ran it 9 times because it's like, how do you not run New York more than once? So we try to turn into something even more special, because we know, one, it's the training. It's, you put in months and months of training, right? To the money. Like it's not cheap, every single year, the cost of these entries goes up, right? And then hotels go up and flights go up. And so it's a real commitment for me financially, emotionally, physically. And so we want to make it as special as possible and not just take your money and say, okay, well, good luck. All the best. In the old days, we couldn't do that, but now, we're definitely doing that for all the events. The non-Abbotts, and I guess also, I don't know if you can kind of see, but we include things like this in some of the packages where people can purchase. It's a specialty plaque that kind of lights up your medal wall. The non-habits, it depends on the event. Sometimes they're very simple events. It's just entry and hotel, and then the meet and greet, and maybe an after party afterwards, or not, depending. If we're not there, then we make it very simple. It's less expensive that way. You just do your own thing. And then inclusions on other trips, like the VIP trips, the escorted ones, it's all in. It's like, again, using the Kilimanjaro example, it's a hike up Kilimanjaro. It is the hotel in between each component. It's a safari in the Serengeti and the Ngorongoro crater, visiting Maasai tribe, and plenty of group dinners and airport transfers and the whole works. It's basically you get off the plane, we take care of you till you get back on the plane. Whereas in New York, you can handle it. It's New York. It's not difficult. It's English speaking. You get off the plane, you get to the hotel, then you meet us, and we take it from there. So it really depends on the trip, and
yeah. And I think too, like for people who are traveling to certainly new cities, but new countries, and again, where they may not speak the local language and stuff like that, to not sort of be on your own in a sense, or try to even figure out some of those logistics is definitely, definitely an important part of just keeping the overall experience really enjoyable and really positive, and making sure that you don't get yourself into some potentially, risky or unnecessary situations where you're missing where you're supposed to be, you can't find lodging or food or whatever it is. So having experts to kind of take care of that piece for you, I think is really great. So we kind of talked about this a little bit already, but didn't really talk about maybe some of the background reasons for it. But I want to just break down kind of the challenges and complexities of getting into some of these events and share some of the different ways that one can enter, mostly because I find at this point in time, like we need a full like poster board infographic, if you've seen the meme of that guy, I don't know who the actor is, but with all the, the board with all the pieces and everything linked together, to just like understand how to even get into some of these races. And it's gotten more popular over the years. Like you said, even your spots are gone in a matter of hours sometimes. Why do you think there is such a surge in popularity for some of these particular events? Like, do you see that races in general are getting a lot more popular and like all of your events are filling up or selling out more quickly? Or is there something very special about, the Abbotts and the runDisney events that are just making them like super, super hot more than anything else?
Sure. Hopefully I can keep my answer on point here, because it's complicated. I think there's a bunch of things. There's definitely something very special with the Abbotts, especially now that they've added a 7th, being Sydney, and then they're going to be adding an 8th and a 9th, and they're supposedly capping at 9, so it's making it even more exciting. And runDisney, they're exciting because it's runDisney. It's fantastic. But I think in general, I don't think I know. Since the pandemic, it's exploded. And the more I talk to people, the more I realize that people spent the pandemic one of two ways. Either drinking and overeating, like I did, because I was, quote unquote, stuck in Costa Rica.
Oh, poor you, hey. Oh, how terrible. Stuck in Costa Rica.
I know, horrific. But I couldn't run. I wasn't allowed to run because, I want to go in the daytime where it's scorching hot. It's like, there's no way. I wasn't allowed to go, when it's dark out. So the other set of people, and it seemed most people did this, they started to run. They got into running during the pandemic, right? And so, I've had repeat clients all 21 years, and they follow us wherever we go, which is absolutely beautiful. But I'm starting to see a whole lot of new names and faces that sign up, and I see them at events, and I talk to them like, so are you new to running? What's going on? And almost everyone says, yeah, I got into running during the pandemic. That's how I dealt with stress. I'm like, wow. So I don't think it's just the Abbott. I don't think it's just runDisney. I think it's all races across the board. Some of the other events we deal with, I'm seeing it there where they sell out and they would have never sold out before. Or you could have waited last minute to get an entry, and now it's like, no, same thing. Non-Abbott, but it's like sold out. So, Yeah, it's across the board. I really believe it's
Yeah,
across the board.
yeah. Well, it's interesting. Like I mentioned before that I'm here in Winnipeg, and of course we have our Manitoba Marathon that I think is celebrating. I'm going to say 45 years this year, but my sincere apologies to the Manitoba Marathon if I got that year wrong. But I think that it's somewhere around 45. And I think it might have been the first time last year that it sold out, the full marathon sold out. And I believe they actually had to add, they ended up being able to add some additional spaces, some more last minute entries to the full. But I don't believe that it had previously been a sellout, even though it is a Boston qualifier. And it's a notoriously fast, really kind of good BQ type of course. But even still, it wasn't necessarily a
Yeah.
sellout event the way that it maybe is becoming. And I agree with you that I'm seeing a lot of new runners coming in to work with me as a coach and dietitian, but also a lot of people who previously ran, took a few years off, kind of had some struggles during the pandemic, and now are sort of back at it. So like they're kind of new, but not really new because they have a little bit of a history, maybe like 5-10+ years ago. But yeah, it's a great time to be a runner because there's just like so much community and so many new things and supports and races and all kinds of stuff going on. But I mean, it's also a really great time to be working with runners because there's just so many of them that, really want and need our help and our support. So we're definitely in good company in this industry at this point in time.
I think so. And I love hearing those success stories about the Manitoba Marathon, right? If it never sold out before and they hang in there because, I've met a lot of race directors and I've been offered to be a race director, over the years. And I always turn it down because I'm like, I couldn't imagine. That's so, like it's a
Yep.
difficult job. And they don't make much money and they put, blood, sweat, and tears into it and they hang in there and they do it just for the love of the sport. And now, it's finally paying off them where they actually get to say,
Hmm.
you sold out, and then great that they can get extra entries like that because not all races can because they need permission from the city, and from police and from fire and they need more volunteers. And it's a real nightmare. And by struggling and, fighting to get those extra entries, that's a lot of extra work for them to make it all happen. So I love seeing success stories
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, if we're not getting out there and participating and supporting these races, and especially our local ones, it's not always about the big flashy, events and necessarily traveling, going far away from home. Like I can't say enough things about making sure that you're also entering and supporting the races that are right next door to you, because if you don't, they're not going to be here. You can't always expect people from away to come and support your races in your community. The people who are here running here and live here really need to be the ones that are making sure that these events sell out and just continue to be around. Otherwise we won't have them anymore.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. But also, um, so you've run other marathons, but had you not, it's like taking part in your local marathon is a great first
Yes.
marathon or half marathon or 10K, whatever it is, to get a taste for what it's like in your hometown where you can
Yeah.
sleep in your own bed, the streets, it removes so much stress, right? And then it preps you for, say, yeah, traveling then afterwards. But I say wherever you are, like support your local races for sure. And then if you happen to be on vacation somewhere, whether it be somewhere else in Canada or Mexico or on a cruise or whatever, and it happens to be a local race, join that
Yeah.
too, right? Why not?
Yep,
You're already
totally,
there.
totally.
Yeah.
So let's break it down a little bit further and sort of get into the different ways that a person can enter one of the world major marathons. So there's a few different methods that a person can find themselves at the start line of one of these events. And so can you break it down for us? What are the different ways? And is it the same for a lot of these, like, not necessarily just the majors, but some of these really huge marathon events, or is it a bit different depending?
Yeah. So I'll break it down for you. The Abbott World Marathon majors have an extra way or two to get in than other major events. But so with the Abbotts, one is a time qualifier, right? So if you're a really fast runner, which the average person is not, right? Um, if you're a really fast runner, then that's one way to get in. However, because of the surge in running, even some new runners are really, really fast. And so the qualification times to get in
Hmm.
is getting harder and
Yeah.
harder to achieve. I remember 20 years ago looking at the Boston qualifying times, I'm like, that'll never be me. I have to
Yeah.
find a different way in. And now they're
Yeah.
just harder and harder. And I also remember using Boston for example, you can miss your qualification time by 2 minutes. Write them a letter and be like, yeah,
Hmm.
okay, we'll still let you in. And then it was 1 minute. And now it's like, no, you need to overqualify, even with the harder qualification times, by
Yeah.
like 10 minutes because there's so
Yeah.
many people qualifying. So, in one breath, I say there's not a whole lot of really fast runners. I mean, there really are. But in comparison, there's not. But there's enough to
Hmm.
fill those
Hmm.
spots. So
Yeah.
that's a hard way to get in. Another way, of course, is the lottery system. Again, in the old days, I'll use New York as an example because I've sold in New York for 21 straight years. Um, there's like, I can't remember exactly, but we'll call it a 8% chance to win the lottery way back in the day. Now it's like, I don't know exactly, but based on our numbers on the amount of clients that we have, and we have a very large group of runners each year, and how many of those people win, it's like maybe 1%,
Hmm.
somewhere in there. So it's much, much harder to qualify by lottery or get in by lottery. But I still recommend you do it because if you do win the lottery, it's way cheaper because the cost of lottery entry is much less than what they charge us
Hmm.
for a guaranteed entry. Uh, Another way is through something called the Wanda Age.
Hmm.
I'm drawing a blank. Wanda Age something. We don't actually deal with that at all, but it's another way to get in. If you run multiple Abbott World Marathon majors, then they have a last chance lottery where they let you go into that. Charity is a fantastic way to get in. I ran my first 3 marathons all through charities, but they weren't Abbott's. And so it was almost a guarantee, and they weren't terribly, terribly expensive. But nowadays, it depends on the marathon. The charity donation can be substantially more, multiple times more, the cost of a guaranteed entry package from a
Hmm.
company like mine. So that's the last option and the easiest option if you are quick, if you're on our wait list, and if you got some money, because this is how the marathons make their money is by selling guaranteed entries to tour operators
Hmm.
like me, and then we resell them. And it's like the charity is an expensive option. Charity, of course, your money is going to really good cause, but it's also sometimes multiple times the cost. And they too, I know from certain races that before a $300, it's always in US dollars, contribution which gets you in, and some of these events now it's like
Yeah.
$8,000, right? It's because the more people trying to go through that route, the more you need to donate, kind of thing. So those are the main ways to get in. There are some other ways if you work for a major corporation, but I think that's for very few people. Like the people that work for IBM or Google or whomever. Some of their companies have entries for their
Mm.
employees, and they get
Okay.
them that way. I've seen
Yeah.
this in the past, but
Yeah.
that's really about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know, Bottom line is get on a list, get on it early. If you want to run in 2026, get on the list now.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then what about for the Run Disney events? That's another one that I see all the time. People online, in the Run Facebook groups and stuff, who everyone's at their computer sitting there when it opens and trying to get in, and there's just this mad frenzy for and they have multiple events throughout the year. So is it a similar breakdown, or is it a bit different? Because do they have like charity bibs and stuff for the Run Disney races as well, or?
They do, yeah. There's charity bibs. There's no Wanda age group entries because that's a Abbott thing. There's no lottery system. So it's either you are super fast on your computer and hopefully you're only registering yourself, or if it's you and your partner or you and a friend, you're both on your own computer registering at the same time, because the chances of you registering yourself and then
Mhm.
the second person, it's not going to happen. Or guaranteed entry through us. It's really, really tough. But again, for instance, like we opened up our entries for Disney World Marathon Weekend 2026 a couple weeks ago. And because Disney doesn't release until
Mhm.
tomorrow, I believe it is, our entry is available. Everyone's waiting for Disney, and then they'll probably come to us. So we'll probably
Yeah.
sell out tomorrow after Disney opens up there. So you gotta be quick. You
Yeah.
gotta be on the list. Yeah, and it's tough because especially if it's a marathon, you're like, well, either you haven't run a marathon before, or you have and you know how difficult training can be. You're like, well, I want to run New York in 2026, but what are my plans, or will I be ready? The beautiful thing is you got plenty of time to train, and then worst case scenario, if you're like, it's now January 2026, races in November. I don't think I can do this. That's way too early to pull the plug on it. But whatever it is, talk to us. Right? We're like, okay, well, you're on our list. We'll take you off the list. Don't worry about it. We'll put you on 2027. It's way better to plan ahead, almost with anything, right? Be on a list and then take yourself off, then try to get on it, because that's
Yeah,
next to impossible.
absolutely, absolutely. I don't know if this was the same. I don't know how long it's been since you lived in Canada, but it reminds me of like our provincial campground booking system in Manitoba, which is like an
Yeah.
absolute hot mess. But the day that like camping registration opens for the season, like everyone's like at their computer on multiple devices. Anybody who's like listening to this episode from Manitoba, I hope that like, this little inside joke is hitting where it needs to. And then you're sitting there for like 7 hours in the queue trying to get in so you can get your camping reservation spots, coordinating with your friends of like what weekends you're going to go where. It's absurd.
I remember coming back and visiting friends, and I'm like, let's go camping. They're like, where have you been? You can't. It's like, you need to. I'm like,
Yeah.
why? It's camping. Like,
yeah, you don't just go camping.
But,
like,
yeah.
Get real.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah,
there
exactly.
you go. I don't feel so bad for saying that.
Yes, exactly. And so aside from, we've talked a lot today about Abbott events and about the runDisney. Are there any other like kind of really sort of exclusive, whether they're small events or just ones that really tend to sell out, that it would be a good idea to be on a wait list for, if it's a kind of a bucket list run or something that people want to do? Or are those really the ones that are kind of the primary ones that we emphasize?
I had to check my list. We've got a lot of events. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh boy, which ones? There's a few other ones, like for those that aren't ready for a marathon, or like me that are like, I think my marathon days are behind me, and half's my thing now. The New York City Marathon, the New York City Half Marathon rather, is one that you need to plan a bit in advance. Not quite as much as the full marathon, but definitely, which is at a different time of year. In fact,
I was gonna say, I think that's right away, isn't it? If it's not already like this past weekend or something.
Yeah. That is coming weekend, yeah. And then, well, yeah, really, I mean, like Paris is another good example. The Medoc, which is a specialty run, it's running through the wine region in France. It's like, but that one was popular 20 years. When I first started this business, I remember thinking, Medoc, I want to run Medoc. I've never run Medoc.
Yeah.
I couldn't get into it. It's always, and then we started selling it for the first time last year, or 2 years ago, I guess. It did okay, but like not really. So it's kind of strange. Maybe we're not getting the word out there. And then maybe the last ones would be something brand new that we're doing that I'm really excited about, where we're working with famous runners like Dean Karnazes and Catherine Swift. So, yeah. So we brought Catherine to New York and to speak just to our group out of 150 countries plus, and 300 something groups. She just with Dream Travel, and I can't say too much here because I'm going to approach her. Actually, later today, she just emailed me again about we're doing Berlin together as well, doing something pretty special. But with the Dean Karnazes, we're doing small VIP group tours with Dean, where we run with him each day at our distances, not his distances.
Yeah, you're going to scare people away, right?
I know it's the first thing we put on our ads, and the first thing I asked them about. I'm like, Dean, let's just be honest here. You're going to be running on your own unless we can do it based on me, not based on you. So it's all short distance, easy stuff. I've run with a guy, and he takes it easy on us. So stuff like that, because they're very small groups, because we want people to have a nice intimate connection relationship in this small group tour, where you actually get to hang out and be with Dean, eat with him, and like talk to him, and not be one of 300 people in a crowd trying to get his attention, kind of thing. So that kind of stuff too. It sounds
that is super cool. I love that idea.
Yeah, I'm really happy it worked out. I went to Greece to sit down with Dean, And with this idea, I want to do this. And we're working together on something else. And he
Mhm.
pitched this to me when I wanted to pitch it to him. I'm like, oh, that's a
Yeah.
great idea, Dean. Let's make it happen.
Yeah.
Sure, why not? So it worked out, yeah, and I'm really excited about it. So in late April, early May, we'll be doing that tour as well.
Fantastic.
So
Yeah. Oh,
very
I love
excited.
that idea. How exciting.
Yeah.
So what has been your kind of running highlight reel? I mean, you run New York 9 times, so like
Oh,
that's probably got to be in your top 3, but what are some of your personal favorite events that you've done over the years and why?
yeah. That's a tough question, right? It's like asking a traveler, what's your favorite
Yeah.
destination? Um, and so New York is one of my favorite marathons. Clearly, because I've run that many times, but it's not one of my favorite experiences. So, I love New York because, and you're going to see, it's the
Mhm.
crowd support. So you can't go anywhere on planet Earth and have 2 to 3 million people cheering you on
Mhm.
live, present. Um, if the weather's good, it'll be 3 million or more. If it's not
Yeah.
good, 2 million. I mean, they scream your name the entire way. So if I can recommend, just like a sidebar here, put your name
Okay.
on your
Okay.
shirt, your bib, right, and
Okay.
see what happens. Yeah, phenomenal, phenomenal. So I love it because you go through ups and downs on a marathon. You're tired. You're beat down. You're like, can I do this? And you can. You start doubting yourself, and these people, even if your name's not on your shirt, they're just screaming at you and pushing you along. You pick up energy all along the course. These people,
Mhm.
it's absolutely amazing. They're running through the 5 boroughs, all that. So for that reason, it's probably it's my favorite street marathon, we'll say. But I had the great fortune of running the Great Wall of
Wow.
China Marathon, and that, I mean, is something I'll never ever forget. Um, and there's only seven. Thank goodness, actually, there's only 7 kilometers on the wall. The rest is, off the wall because you don't want more than that. But the rest of the course is also hellacious because it's just up and down. It's,
Yeah.
it's a very hilly area, but phenomenal experience. Um, Mount Kilimanjaro, which I just came back from. So I've only run the marathon there once. I've run the half 4, 5,
Mhm.
6 times. I can't remember. But prior to the pandemic, and the year around the marathon, um, all these kids, these local kids from Tanzania in Moshi, this place called Moshi, the marathon starts and finishes. They line up and they watch us crazy foreigners come to run this race, and that of course is also, it's like my Strava profile. That's the
Yeah.
course on the half. Clearly, the full is not quite like that, but it has the same hill. Anyway, so you're out there, and you know all my clients have these groups of kids running with them, like groups, like 5, 6, 10 kids. I'm like, why? I don't have any kids, you know. And there's other men running, so it's not that. And I'm not a big smiley, I'm running a marathon kind of guy. I'm like, I'm not. I wasn't born to run. I'm not built for running. I was born with some issues, and so it's painful to run, even though
Mhm.
I still do it. I love to do it. And so I thought maybe I'm like grimacing, right? So I'm like, I forced myself to smile at these kids. I see these two little kids, and they instantly come over and they grab my hands,
Yeah.
one on either side. I was probably about 10K in. I don't know exactly, but we'll say 10K in. They finished the
Oh,
marathon with
wow.
me. Now, one was in flip flops. The other one was barefoot. And I don't know how old they were, but my best guess is that the oldest one was
Yeah.
6 and the other
Yeah.
one was 5. They ran 32 kilometers with me, screaming hot tarmac, barefoot, one of them, right? And there's a lot more of that story, but that, I mean, that I got goosebumps right now. And I just came back and I didn't have that experience, right? Because I was around on my own with some clients. It's like that is forever etched, in my Hall of Fame for races. But I've had the good fortune running many, many countries
Mhm.
around the world, and all of them, have maybe not a story like that, but a very amazing story tied to it because something happened, or just the fact that I was in that specific country in that super remote corner of the world, running with locals or um, or whomever, and Yeah, I got stories I can't even talk about. I've run in places where I'm not legally or I'm not permitted to
Okay.
be in.
Yeah.
You know, they don't stamp your passport when you
Yeah.
enter
Yeah.
that country, right? And so those come with really amazing stories too, because it's like, wow, I'm actually here and to do this race that so few foreigners
Yeah.
have ever done or
Yeah.
will ever do. Yeah. So yeah, no shortage of race
Yeah. Oh,
stories, that's
that's
for
so
sure.
fun. And, to go from, like you said in the beginning, like a career that wasn't ultimately fulfilling for you and just kind of wasn't your purpose in life to now do this. And to me you sound like someone who really loves what they do and really kind of loves maybe not all aspects of running a business and owning a company, because that obviously comes with challenges, but so many wonderful exciting experiences and adventures going along with it, and also being able to bring that to other people and to be able to offer that exact same experience and adventure to the clients that you serve, which is a really, really cool thing to be able to do.
Yeah, and to take it one step further, something that will never grow old for
Hmm.
me is, I got more staff now, so I don't work as closely with my clients as I used to. But in the old days, it's not a money making business that I'm in. It's a business of passion. Um, so I ran the business by myself, and so I knew every single client. I worked them for an entire year in
Yeah.
most cases, right? So, um, and I also trained them to the running room, right? And so I went through the ups and downs of them, and then I get to destination and I meet them for the first time, or in the case of my repeat clients, the 15th time or whatever, and they run up and they give me this big hug and they thank me. They're like, you know, you changed my life. And I'm like, I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything. I just, I have the opportunity for you. You did all the hard work. But, you get that instant bond with that person because, as you know, running a 5K is amazing. Running a 10K is amazing. You want to change your life, run a marathon,
Yeah.
right? And see, to go through that journey with this person and then to be there at the finish line for them or run it alongside them, man, it's like, it's the greatest part of my job is to see people making momentous, monstrous change in their life. It's a beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful thing. I love it, and that after 21 years of doing this, it does
Yeah,
not grow ever.
absolutely, absolutely, yeah. I feel very similarly about, like, my role as being a coach and a dietitian for runners. Like, people will come in and afterwards they have a great event and they'll, thank you and stuff like that, and it's like, I mean, you were out there. Like, all I did I it's not all I do, but, like, I told you how many gels to take. Listen, you're the one who put in all those miles. I do more than just tell people how many gels they have to take. But, and I love being part of that. Like, you get such a sort of secondary high from other people achieving their goals and being able to like support them in doing these really amazing things. And especially maybe for some of my clients, like some of the things that I feel like I would never do, like some of my ultra runner clients or, people doing some like really amazing, incredible, challenging events that for me, especially at the stage of life I'm in, I'm like, well, you wouldn't catch me out there doing this like absolutely wild thing that you've put yourself up to over there in Montana. But I love that for you. And I love being part of your journey. It feels really good for me to be able to support you in that.
Well, yeah, and so I got two things. One is to go back a step. I wouldn't still be here doing this. I wouldn't still be running races anyway if it wasn't for my clients because they inspire me. You know,
Yes.
when I
Yes.
don't run a race, I used to run every single race I went to, and then now I can't, right? Because some limitations. But I get to watch them then. If it's a full marathon, I'm not doing it, and I'm like, oh, I got to keep going. I got to keep going, and I would not still be running if it wasn't for
Yeah.
them. But also, why do you say you wouldn't do an ultra?
At this stage of my life, we'll put it that way. I'll never say never. I'll never say never. But
Okay,
yes, at this stage of life, when I've got limited time to train young kids at home, 100,000 excuses. But
so I've got 3-year-old
I have
twins.
twins too. I do. Yeah,
Really? How
they're
old are your twins?
almost 16 months.
How?
Yes, congratulations to
Congratulations!
you too.
Yeah, I did
So
not know.
funny. Oh my goodness.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah. Okay. Well, 16 months is a different story. All right, fine. But it comes
Yeah.
down to planning,
Yeah.
right? And just so you know, and for other people out there that are like, ultra marathon, forget it. I think I've only done one back in 2008. And personally, I learned a lot from that race, even though I didn't finish it. It was my only DNF ever. It was a 250K plus ultra in the Gobi Desert in China. And that's where I actually met Dean Canassis the first time, because he showed up to run it. And what I learned was ultras are easier than marathons.
Yeah, I could see
Way
that
easier.
argument. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like when you run a marathon, everyone's like, well, what was your time? It's like, well, what was your time? Did you, did you run the marathon? It's like, I always got offended. I'm like, because I'm not a fast runner. I am go out there and get it done. That's why I care about collecting medals and experiences and burning some cupcakes off, because I like to eat. It's like, I don't care about my time. When you run an ultra, it's not what's your time. It's like, did you survive?
Yeah. And it's just wow.
It's just wow. Yeah. It's like you did what? Yeah. So take your time. You walk if you need to. There's just no pressure, and it's like, I don't know. I loved it, and I didn't finish it, and it was hell. And if I were to, like, on paper write down everything that happened, you'd be like, why?
Yeah.
Why did you do that? But it was the most hellacious and beautiful experience of my life. And so I'm all for ultras. If I could, I'd
super cool
to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So did you say your twins are 3 years old?
They'll be 3 in
oh my
a week
gosh
from today,
okay
actually. And they're running their third or fourth race the day before at the New York City
Half. I
the
love that.
race.
I cannot wait until my little guys are big enough for, like, putting them in those little kid events. I just can't wait.
It's the best. I've run the New York City Half a few times. I ran the inaugural year as well. That's when we first started selling it. And I want to run the half, because I shouldn't be running actually right now, but I've run 3 halves so far this year, and I wanted that to be my 4th. And I literally didn't register for it because I wanted to watch my kids run. So it's all about it's about them now. And my wife, she
well, and I love again, just back to hear what we've been doing with the Manitoba. So they used to have the little, I think they call it the mini mites, little race. And they used to have it, like, right before. So if the full marathon started at 7 a.m., then at like 10 to 7, they would have this, like, little kind of 100-meter dash for the kids. But they actually moved it now to be the day before the marathon. So it takes place on the Saturday, kind of during the expo, which I think is fantastic, because then I think far more people are going to be more likely to get their kids in it. Because if you're maybe don't have childcare, running solo, whatever, like, how are you supposed to get your kids to do this thing? And then, like, you got to take off and whatever. So it's really nice that you can do both. So
that's smart. Well done, math.
All right. So where can people find you, find Dream Travel Canada, connect with you guys, get on those wait lists that you mentioned for some of these upcoming races? Just, tell us where everyone can learn more about what you do and what you offer.
Yeah, sure. Our website's nice and easy. It's www.dreamtravelcanada.com. Contact us at events@dreamtravelcanada.com. And maybe if you're looking for some inspiration, check out our Instagram page. All that's available on the website. And we're always here. We pride ourselves on customer service. I think that's how we've been around for so long. So if you recall us, we actually pick up the phone. If you email us, we actually respond to you right away. And we're all runners. We all have done this. We know what it's like. And so we're here to support you.
Wonderful.
Start to cross the
finish. Wonderful. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Stephen, for taking the time out of your day. It was fantastic to be able to sit down and learn so much about you and your company and all of the different really exciting things that you have coming up. Any last kind of pieces of advice, last minute tips, anything that you want to share before we let you go today?
Yeah, sure. It's easy to doubt, right? To doubt oneself. Oh, I can't do that. Even if it's a 5K, I can't do that. Yeah, you can. I promise you can do it. The average person that, has a job that's not seated probably puts on more than 5K a day anyway, right? So they're capable. So I say, sign up for the race. Sign up for 5K if you've never done anything, and just have fun with it, right? I mean, people walk the entire event all the time. You don't have to run it. So just walk it if you have to, or walk it, whatever. Just sign up and get it done. and then try a 10K, and then try a half marathon, and you get to the full marathon. I promise you, if I can do it, anyone can do it. Another thing is, speaking of the kids' races, get your kids involved as soon as you can. Some of these races, have a minimum age of 3 or 4, whatever it is. Whatever it is, get them involved, get them excited about it. And, it's a super healthy thing for kids, and they get to be part of this atmosphere of coming together and doing something special, and they get a medal for it or whatever, a ribbon, something. And it's something they'll probably cherish. And then maybe that'll inspire mom and dad to get into it too, if they're not already.
Absolutely. Oh, so great. All right. So everyone, please, make sure that you go over to Instagram and follow Dream Travel Canada, check out their website, get on their wait list, because as we mentioned, those spots will be selling out quickly. Those are hot tickets these days. And thank you once again, Stephen, for taking the time to come and chat with me today. It was a really, really great conversation.
Yeah, thank you too. And
yes, we'll see you in New York. All right. That is it for this week's episode of the Fuel, Run, Recover podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you right back here next week. Bye for now. The information on this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not to be used or relied upon for diagnosis or treatment of any health condition. This information does not create a client-practitioner relationship and should not be used as a substitute for professional medical advice.